Do you still have the record label?
I do not know. Jude Cole, who was my partner in that, is an extraordinary musician and producer.
Hmm.
He went forward with that. I don't have the skill set to do it. So what I had was the studio, and he had the skill set to run it. And I ended up moving back to New York, and so I sold the studio to Danny Elfman. And I keep getting these kind of fantastic notes from T-Bone Burnett, because I had put plug inlays and outlets for microphones everywhere. I mean, everywhere, in bathrooms, in closets, and T-Bone Burnett is the exact kind of guy who's like, oh my God, I'm going to do the guitar part in this closet, and so he's like, thank you so much for putting those there. But so I had the studio, and that was really, my part, and obviously I had a vote in what bands we would record there. We were just trying to help out. The music industry was imploding, and there were these
Yeah.
great artists from Long Beach to Los Angeles that just were not getting signed. And so we were kind of a production entity where we would make their record and help them get to a major label. And we had success with that, and it was a really enjoyable time. Um, but it was hard too. I mean, I was doing 24 at the time, and then I'd come home and there'd be these guys and girls making some great music, and I'd want to see, and then all of a sudden you'd stay up too late, and yeah,
Didn't Canada's own Ron Sexsmith, wasn't he
yeah,
on the label?
yeah.
Yeah.
He was never really on our label, but we made his record.
Okay.
And Ron was fantastic, and Ron's such a beautiful artist and such a beautiful person. And
Incredible
yeah,
songwriter.
and he really is an artist and beautiful player and singer too. But yeah, we were thrilled to have him.
I got to ask you about that experience in London. So I guess this was earlier this year, BBC Radio 2 with the orchestra. Did you not?
Oh gosh, yeah. So we did the piano room.
I mean, just to give people perspective. So I mean, this is a legendary studio,
Yeah,
and I mean,
absolutely.
I saw the Elbow show with the full orchestra, and it was
Uh-huh.
absolutely gorgeous, absolutely
Yeah.
gorgeous. So, what's that like?
Well, it was extraordinary. I mean, and also further context, like the band that was before us was Coldplay, and the band before that, artist before that was Peter Weller, and these are obviously
Paul Weller?
Paul
Paul
Weller,
Weller.
and sorry, Peter Weller's a friend of mine who's an actor,
I'm
and
sure he's a great musician
and
too.
and so to be asked was by the BBC was really nice, and so the format of the show is called the Piano Room, and
Right.
and the format is that you play an older song of yours, and I had a hit in the UK. And we played that, and then a new song of yours from the album that I've got coming out in January called Goodbye California, and then you do a cover.
Mhm.
And then
Which went viral
I did a cover of Phil Collins'
in the
"In
air
the Air
tonight.
Tonight." Yeah, and so, and the single that I had that was a top 10 single in the UK was "Something You Love," and so you rehearse all three songs with a conductor, and you don't really. You just our composer was a woman, and she or arranger, and she wanted to trim one song by a verse just for time and things like that. And then once we work out the count, she'd send us a rough, like a MIDI version of what the orchestra was going to do, and we could rehearse to that. But when you actually get there, you do one through with the orchestra, and that's it. And then you go live,
Wow.
and it's a counting thing, right? I mean, you've got an intro, and your band comes in at one point, then the orchestra comes in at another point, and if you get that wrong, there's no turning back. There's no fixing it because they're reading charts, and so that orchestra is going to play what they're going to play,
Right.
and that'll wake you up, because if I forget a lyric line or something like that, I know my band will know that if we come to that moment and I'm not singing, we're just going to go a loop around and come back to the one and start again.
Yeah.
That is not an option in this circumstance. It's like it's like being in a play with a bunch of actors,
Right.
and if you drop a line, they're not waiting. They're
Yeah,
going to
yeah,
just
yeah.
keep going
Yeah.
on. And yeah, that's a wake you up moment. But it was it was certainly a highlight for me. I loved the experience. The orchestra was phenomenal. Our arranger and conductor was extraordinary. She was great, and my band got to play in a place. My band is all British, and they got to play in a place that Maida Vale Studios, which they never imagined they would ever play again. You know.
I can't imagine what that experience must be like though, when the orchestra kicks in and suddenly you're like, a song that you'd performed,
Yeah,
just with
yeah,
a 4 piece or a 5 piece, and then
yeah,
suddenly got a full orchestra playing
yeah.
behind you.
And it's incredibly special. And what was really interesting to me was, because I don't like to perform with in-ears. I would much rather perform without them. And the only reason why I had to have in-ears was so that I could hear the count in.
Right.
Because the orchestra, which was so phenomenal, and this really tells you about great players. Great players are not loud. I could go in there with an acoustic guitar and sing with that orchestra, and I would not need in-ears. I would hear myself perfectly. And which is just blew my mind. I thought it was going to be like a cacophony,
Uh-huh.
and it wasn't. It was so balanced and delicate, and yeah. So it was an experience, certainly for me as a player, an experience of a lifetime.
The other interesting thing that you were up to this year, you were just in New York not long ago for the launching of a book about Buddy Holly.
About Buddy Holly,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So is he somebody that was significant in your musical tutelage?
Well, I don't know how he, if you're a singer-songwriter now and you're playing contemporary music, you might not be aware of Buddy Holly just because you don't know, but his impact is in your music. There's
Right.
no way around it. You can't play the chords C, G, and D and not have Buddy Holly as a part of your lexicon. Because when Buddy Holly was writing those songs, like Every Day, there was no roadmap for this. No one had written anything like this. It wasn't like the blues that was coming out of the Delta, and it wasn't like the
Mm-hmm.
country that was coming out of Memphis.
Right.
This early rock and roll, just like Chuck Berry, there was no roadmap for him. This was all brand new. They were coming up with something that was completely original, um, and the impact that it had on popular music is mind boggling. I mean,
Well, the Beatles
when
named after the cricket. So
well, and the Beatles, the first song that they covered was a Buddy Holly song before they had written their own songs. That's how
right,
they got their deal.
right.
The Beatles, when they went to do the Ed Sullivan Show, before they did their recording, they were being shown around the room, and they all gathered in the center of the stage that they were going to perform on. And John Lennon said, "Is this where Buddy Holly stood to play when he played the Ed Sullivan Show?" And they said yes. And John Lennon got on his knees and kissed the floor. Right. So if Buddy Holly had such a profound impact on the Beatles, and then the Beatles had such a profound impact on you, then you have to acknowledge that Buddy Holly had an impact on you as well. And it's so to be a part of that book was really special, and to have been asked by Maria Helena, Buddy Holly's widow, was also special. I was playing a show in Lubbock, Texas, and my friend and I had walked around the town, and just on the outskirts of the kind of the main block, there's a beautiful statue of Buddy Holly. And I don't do a lot of posting on social media, but that day I got on my knees and I just kind of prayed to Buddy Holly, and my friend took a picture and we posted that just out of respect. And she saw that, and I was, I was on quite a long tour, and I was now in Glastonbury. I was playing Glastonbury in the UK, and some gentleman came up to me and said, Maria Elena wanted to present you with this guitar, and there's, a number of these guitars are going out, and they're ambassador guitars for Buddy Holly, and they gave me one, and I became part of the program with that, and it's something that I'm honored to be a part of, and is very special
Oh
to
my
me.
God.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Your last album, I think it was about 3 years ago
About
now.
2.5, yeah, maybe 3 years. The new album comes out in January, and the only reason I finished the record, the only reason why I'm having to wait is because I have these two films that I have to finish and I'm trying to release the record close enough to a time when I'd be able to tour significantly around it. That's the exciting part, right?
Yeah.
And so January is what we're looking at right now.
You know, there's one thing, and I don't know how much time we have, but I find it fascinating where we're at right now, music in terms of music, because your two worlds have this synergy right now, and the two worlds being music industry and the movie industry, because the point of entry for a lot of young people right now is thanks to song placements in films and in TV shows. I mean, that's how they're discovering a lot of music
Yeah.
now. I mean, I would love the job of a music supervisor. I mean, that would be a dream job.
Well,
for me.
it's a huge deal, and when you think of someone like Taylor Sheridan, like Colter Wall, his career was started because he had a placement in a film called Hell or High Water. So it's Taylor Sheridan has great taste in music, and he's helped a lot of artists out between his television shows and films. And so, absolutely, I had in fact, one of my friends that's here with me today, because we're launching a whiskey called Red Bank, was a music supervisor at Warner Brothers, and the second film I directed, called Truth or Consequences in New Mexico, we placed the first Wilco track in a movie.
Wow.
And they could all pay their rent that
Yeah,
year.
yeah.
Yeah. And so it made a big difference for them. So you're absolutely right that movie, films, and video games
Right.
are a huge entry point for bands. And in many ways, those outlets and those opportunities are taking place, what radio used to do for artists, which was kind of, nurture local bands from local areas. I can't remember whether it was Cleveland or Cincinnati, but one of those cities had a DJ that fell in love with Rush.
Yeah.
Right. And really just would not let go
Right.
when no one was biting, and just kept with them for a long time. I can't imagine my childhood without listening to Rush. Right. I just couldn't imagine it. And so I'm grateful to whatever DJ it was that just, wouldn't let his audience forget this band.
Did you see what Alex Lifeson did last night?
I did not know.
So he was on stage with Tom Cochrane. Tom Cochrane was opening for The Who last night on the Budweiser stage in Toronto.
Oh, wow.
And Alex got up and joined them for 3 songs.
Oh, that's fantastic.
How cool is that?
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Yeah, Red Rider is another band that I just absolutely adored with Tom in it, and what a voice, and Alex, just a virtuoso guitar player, and yeah, and I was really proud of those roots. I also love the fact that, in Canada, and I don't know if that's still the case, but certainly when I was growing up, they had to play a percentage of Canadian music.
Still exists.
Yeah,
and the CanCon restrictions. Yeah.
Yeah, so like you'll hear April Wine forever, right? Yeah. And I loved April Wine, and so it's there's something very kind of affirming about coming back to Canada and still being able to hear the music that you grew up on. Yeah.
I do want to talk about the whiskey, if we have a minute. Thank you so much. A beautiful bottle. I am a whiskey fan. I've recently started to expand my horizons because I was always a Scotch drinker,
Yeah.
and then I got into Irish whiskey. I don't know Canadian whiskey that well. That will now change.
Well, so it's interesting. Canadian whiskey, there's 2 requirements to becoming a Canadian whiskey. You have to have a wheat profile and a rye profile.
I was going to ask.
And for some reason, almost all Canadian whiskeys tend to have a flavor profile that heads down to American bourbon and Kentucky bourbon.
Is that the rye?
And that's the rye.
Okay.
And so I didn't understand that. We're making this whiskey in Nova Scotia, which means New Scotland. Why are we not making a Canadian whiskey that kind of tips its head at least back towards the old country,
which is barley, right?
Yeah, no, well, for Scotch, yes,
Yeah.
but we raised our wheat profile to the highest, very close to the highest limits of what a Canadian whiskey can be, and we brought down the rye profile significantly. So you're going to get a sense of Scotland when you have a glass of that whiskey, but it is, distinctly Canadian. because it's made with Canadian products. It's made with Canadian wheat. It's made with Canadian water. It's made with Canadian corn and rye. And we're very proud. It's won a gold medal at the World Whiskey Conference in San Francisco, and so yeah, I don't need to talk about it. You're going to have a sip of it in the next day or two, and you can tell people whether you liked it or not.
Within the next few minutes, actually.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, yeah. But I was very proud to be a part of something that I think we've made a really premium product, and I think it's something that we can go around the world with. Africa, whiskey is an incredibly prestigious thing, and has a very big whiskey culture, and so does
Japan.
Asia.
Oh my goodness.
And and so that really was the impetus, was we wanted to make a premier brand that we could take around the world and kind of show off with and brag about Canada.
And it's called Red Bank because that is where you have the distillery in Halifax?
The home distillery just outside of Halifax is on the Red Bank. And so there's a Red Bank and there's a Green Bank.
Yeah.
And those are nautical points and reference points that have been used by captains and shippers, for hundreds and hundreds of years, trying to navigate their way into Halifax. And so hence the name.
I look forward to tasting it, and thanks for taking the time to come by. I'd love to talk more music, but we better let you be on your way.
Well, thank you very much, and it was a pleasure to be here, and hopefully in January we'll see you with a new record.
I look forward to it.
Okay, man.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you.
Thank you.